Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Packernet Podcast. I am your host and resident panelist, as always, Ryan Schlip. Check us out online, packernet.com. Find me on Twitter, pack_daddy. Lots of news and notes today. That is the order of the day. We have a lot to get through. I'm just going to start ripping through it, and we'll see how far we get, because it's just, I'm having a hard time even, like, when I go to add a note, it's like, where do I put this on this long list of notes here? Where, oh, where? Shout out to the Patreons. Really appreciate Justin Bearwald joining up over there. You can support me over at patreon.com/pack_daddy. We'll probably do a Super Bowl stream. That occurred to me like 5 seconds ago. I was trying to think what we should do. I do want to do draft stuff. I have this feeling in my mind that I'm going to waste my time because we're not going to quite have enough people. I want to kind of build toward that a little bit. Obviously, we won't know until we know. But if you're interested, shoot me a message and be like, yeah, dude, let's freaking do it. But in the meantime, we should probably do a Super Bowl stream. It's something to do, keep the troops motivated and whatnot. Patreon.com/pack_daddy. You can support for as little as $1 a month or free if you're so inclined. I've been putting some free stuff up there for anyone interested in that. All right, I want to start with this. This is not entirely sports related, but kind of is. It's just really become like a habit at this point. Anytime this pops up, because I've referenced it several times, and so every time it shoots up, I will... Every time it happens, I will mention it. I've mentioned I don't know how many times, if you are a young person listening and you're looking for a job or something and you're trying to get into journalism, don't do it. Don't do it. All you see anymore, all you're ever going to see is thousands of people laid off from this organization, that organization. That's all you've seen over the last so many years. And it's only going to get worse. With social media being what it is and AI growing to what it has, what it is right now, there is nothing, and I don't mean this to be rude, with the exception of people that have, inside information. We got, insiders for the Packers. We got insiders for the NFL. We got political insiders and all that stuff. The people that just sit at home and write stories, I'm sorry, they're useless. They really serve zero purpose. I don't know why anybody would just sit and read an article. If it's an article from an insider, I get it, right? There's unique information you're not going to find anywhere else. Otherwise, what are we doing? And even if you disagree with me, it doesn't matter, because the fact of the matter is enough people agree with me to the point that these businesses are going completely underwater and they're firing everybody. The world is changing and adapting, and you need to adapt with it. Don't go to school to learn to enter a dying industry. 1/3 of the staff of the Washington Post was just laid off. I've said this now, I don't know how many times, because this is at least a once-a-year thing. All these people get laid off, and everybody gets mad. How dare you? This is such a great thing that this thing does, and you've laid everybody off. Yeah, dude, because they're losing money. Because the work you do is not making us profitable, so you lose your job. That is the calculus. It's that simple. And here's the other thing. If what you're doing is genuinely valuable, go start a Substack and tell people, hey, pay me $5 to read what I write. And then when thousands or tens of thousands of people do that, you have just replaced your income. Congratulations. If you can't do that, now we learned why you were fired. Okay? There you go. It's one of the largest mass newsroom layoffs in its history. And I've said this before too. How do like CNN and MSNBC and Fox and everything, how do they live? You got people in their basements with $1,000 setups, including the PC, that are dwarfing the viewership of these multi-million-dollar operations. That's not sustainable. I'm so sorry to tell you. So that includes obviously a bunch of sports writers and whatnot. So again, if you want to be a sports writer, don't. Start a podcast, start a YouTube. And those things are better anyways, because it's a feedback loop. You will find out if people want to listen to what you have to say. You can do it and do it and do it. And if people listen, then you have something of value. And if they don't, then you don't, and you can do something else. Super Bowl news. Man, just talking about the Super Bowl, I'm regretting what I just said about doing a live stream because I just don't freaking care. I just don't care. But we should talk about it. Drake May said he expects to practice in full ahead of the Super Bowl. A lot of these guys are doing okay. Sam Darnold says he feels, quote-unquote, real good or really good ahead of the Super Bowl against the Patriots. Been dealing with an oblique issue, blah, blah, blah. He'll be fine. The thing that is actually interesting here, not that the quarterback's being injured isn't interesting. We'll see how that affects things. Adam Schefter reporting, Seahawks head coach Mike McDonald told reporters that safety Nick Emmanwori suffered a low ankle sprain Wednesday, but he's confident he will play in Sunday's Super Bowl. So that was a pretty big deal. Him getting injured, a lot of fear. And I think there probably should be a low ankle sprain. I would imagine that's going to freaking hurt. I mean, he'll play through it. It's the Super Bowl, but that's gotta suck a little bit. I know there was a quote from Nick Emmanwori saying as much. I didn't save that, but it was essentially him saying, "Yeah, I'll be fine. I'll be out there playing." But pretty big deal to have that crop up right before the Super Bowl. What was tonight? NFL Honors? I don't even know. I just saw a video of Jordan. I guess he's there. Moving on, we got a little bit more detail on these international games. The first of which here, reported via Ari Mirov, just announced the Rams will play the 49ers in Melbourne, Australia next season for the NFL's first ever game in Australia. It does make sense they chose Rams 49ers. You got the two West Coast teams. It's the least amount of, jet lag or whatever. They were also talking about possibly having this as like the first game of the season, even before that first Thursday game, to give them extra time to recover because of the, how extreme of a trip that is. So we'll see how that all plays out, but that'll be interesting to see the Melbourne, Australia. I mean, there is always a part of me. I'm really torn on the international stuff. On one hand, I love it. I love expanding the sport. I love seeing the international fans get an opportunity to do all this stuff. The other part of me is really frustrated that it's like we're turning this into a traveling circus and putting our guys through all this additional strain just to put on this circus for everybody else. Like Australians have TVs. They can watch it whenever they want. You know what I mean? I don't know. I can't make up my mind, but it'll be cool. Oh, yeah, they're rolling out the honors right now. Okay. Well, I'll be live reporting that, I guess, kind of. But the Cowboys will play the NFL's first ever regular season game next season in Rio de Janeiro. The Rio game will be played at, the Maracana Stadium. The game in Rio will be part of an NFL record 9 international games across 4 continents, 7 countries, and 8 stadiums. It's kind of cool. In a this is horrible, you're ruining the sport kind of way. This is pretty cool. I like it. Josh McDaniels, AP Assistant Coach of the Year. Congratulations to Josh McDaniels. I just don't care. Speaking of how much I don't care about all this extra nonsense, Browns head coach Todd Monken said it's TBD if Shedeur Sanders will start for the Browns next season. The guy is currently at the Pro Bowl. He's there doing whatever the Pro Bowl thing is that Pro Bowl people do. I don't know. I don't even know if that. I think the game happened. I have no. Oh, it did because I saw Micah Parsons rolling around on a freaking scooter, which was the only redeemable part of that whole thing. He's at the Pro Bowl. He might not even be a starter for the team, a starting quarterback, but he went to the Pro Bowl. Yeah, that makes sense. What an absolute freaking joke. I mentioned we're, traveling around the world, turning the NFL into a sideshow. They're kind of a sideshow in the United States, too. A couple different news and notesy rumors, things that I was able to find. Apparently, in regard to Mike Evans, the 12-year veteran who has spent his entire career with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. At age 31 years of age, Evans has struggled with injury in the past 2 seasons and played in just 8 games last year, catching 30 passes. Those I've spoken with over the past week believe it's less than 50-50. The veteran wideout re-signs with Tampa, and that his career with the Buccaneers is likely finished. He'd like to go to a contender and win another title. I figure the New England Patriots would be a good fit, as Evans would be the final piece for their offense. Yet people in the know believe the Buffalo Bills are the team likely to target the former All-Pro. This is some Tony Pauley notes from his Senior Bowl time. In addition to that, one interesting soon-to-be free agent receiver to keep an eye on is Alec Pierce of the Indianapolis Colts. Pierce could re-sign with the Colts, the team that drafted him, if they give him a Godfather contract, an offer he can't refuse. Yet, I would expect the 2022 second-round pick to hit the free agent market and sign a contract for more than anyone expects. Now, I'm thinking wide receiver probably isn't something we're going to go after, but it is something we're going to have to talk about, something we're going to have to keep an eye on, and I'm, very open-minded to the idea of a receiver. I don't exactly know who that would be, but these are a couple guys to keep your eyes on. In addition to that, The Athletic's Zach Bierman believes Dallas Goedert will play elsewhere in 2026. Goedert and the Eagles danced around a separation for most of last offseason, including trade rumors around the NFL draft, but Philadelphia couldn't find a real replacement for the 31-year-old tight end. An impending free agent, we'd expect Goedert to have an interesting market, but he might struggle to land a multi-year deal considering his advanced age. Now, that's somebody we will certainly be looking at. There's people already talking about finding that number 2 tight end to complement Tucker Kraft. Doesn't seem to be the Packers' style, is Dallas Goedert, but you can't 100% rule it out. And then one I'm sure we're going to hear all about, even though it's way out of the realm of possibility, but it's going to be a fun talking point for a lot of Packer fans. The Athletic's Paul Dehner Jr. believes there is no realistic scenario where edge rusher Trey Hendrickson signs with the Bengals in 2026. Dehner bats around the idea of a franchise tag and trade scenario for Hendrickson, who he projects will get something close to the $29 million per season he made in 2025. I want to make sure I read that right, that it's not going to be close, but no, it's going to be close. Despite missing most of the year with core muscle injury that eventually required surgery. I've already heard quite a few other names kind of being talked about as a potential edge. We got to see what happens with Rashawn first, but I think if he does move on, we're definitely going to be talking about possible free agent additions at the edge position. Not that it's a need, but it's suddenly become something that becomes realistic. Trey Hendrickson is not, but again, that'll be a fun one. I'm sure some people will talk about how, bro, we should just do it. We just got to do it, man. And then I'll entertain it because, why not? That'd be the freaking best thing ever. Some somewhat free agent news here. Browns GM Andrew Berry said we're probably going to be one of the younger teams in the league in 2026. Already young at quarterback, running back, and tight end, the statement reads like an admission the Browns plan to completely retool the offensive line in 2026. Cleveland's entire main starting line from 2025, Joel Petonio, Wyatt Teller, Cam Robinson, Jack Conklin, and Ethan Posick, are all free agents. So is swingman Tevin Jenkins. Petonio entered what would be age 35. Bottom line, these are all offensive linemen to keep an eye on, and it's already something we should be keeping an eye on. State Department says leave Iran. So if you happen to be in Iran, go ahead and get out. We got to keep an eye out for offensive linemen. Again, Packers typically not looking for the older guys. However, every year there's always a little bit. Well, let's put it this way. Number one, it's completely untrue that we always do this. The thing that is because it has to be, right? The Packers are a young team. It's been that way for a couple of years now. Therefore, it's by design. It was meant to be that way. Therefore, they're trying to be the youngest team and are deliberately choosing to never bring in old people. Everything after they're old, everything after the part where we said they're the youngest team in football was completely made up. It's completely made up. That's number one. Number two, they change all the time. We've seen, even in Brian Gutekunst's tenure, heading on one particular path and then kind of changing it and going down a different path. It's not impossible that, number one, they find a guy that's 30 plus and say, despite his age, we like him. By the way, we talked about this last year already. And we talked about Trey Hendrickson, that they feel like there are certain guys that, despite the age, can still play at a high level. They've done it in the past and would do it again. Reggie White being sort of the prime example. But even if we say none of that was true, it's entirely possible that they did change their mind. They're like, all right, you know what, we do need to do this, or they get desperate, or whatever the case may be. I'm just so sick of every time you talk about, maybe we should look at this guy who's 31. It's like, oh, they would never do that. Never. Okay, yeah, sure, great. Anyways, just obnoxious. Just stop that. In addition to that, Fox NFL's Jay Glazer believes Max Crosby's time with the Raiders is done. Speaking with Yahoo Sports, Glazer speculated that the Raiders could get more in return for Crosby than the Cowboys did when trading for Micah Parsons. That would be insane. Obviously, that's not going to be on our radar. We don't have another 2 first-round picks. But the other thing I've mentioned, and I mention this every offseason, just because we're not going after Hendrickson and we're not going after Crosby doesn't mean that doesn't help us. If we're looking for an edge rusher, what that does is it raises the level of the guys that we maybe wouldn't have gotten before. So instead of, 5 teams competing for 3 edge rushers, we, with these 2 things, now have 5 teams competing for 5 edge rushers, with 2 of the highest bidders taking the 2 top guys. So now 2 of the biggest spenders looking for the best guys are out of there, so their ability to outbid us in this is over. Plus, now they're out of the edge rush market. So now the market is much more favorable for us toward the guys that we would actually be going after anyways. So, and that's true of wide receiver as well. Pierce, probably too expensive for us. Evans, maybe a little too old and banged up for us. But as long as somebody else is interested, if the Buffalo Bills are hunting really hard and they want Mike Evans, great, take him. And then Alec Pierce can go to the New England Patriots. And then we can find, some kind of just big, tall guy, like a slightly less banged up Mike Evans or something. I don't know. Anywho, let's take a break. We got a bunch more news to rip through. And again, we'll just see how far this takes us. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. So we already did one bit of news. It's been a lot of Eagles news, right? Guys are struggling to get jobs over there. They don't seem to want to work there. The offensive line coach I mentioned yesterday decided to leave the team. A lot of strife between a lot of different people. And then today, as I just mentioned, the talk about possibly losing their starting tight end. Finally, a bit of good news for the Eagles. Vic Fangio will return to the team, so they were able to retain at least somebody for at least a little bit of time. On the more negative side, the Athletic's Zach Bierman believes A.J. Brown will seek a trade this offseason. This isn't really shocking breaking news, but it's more confirmation about the Eagles continuing to sort of fall apart here. Bierman ominously writes, "It might be difficult to put toothpaste back in this tube, and there's too much smoke here for me to answer this question differently. Though he admits that this remains just a guess, Brown figures to be one of the major turning points of the offseason for both the Eagles and the entirety of the NFL. None of the smoke that has come out about the relationship between the Eagles and the Browns has looked encouraging for him to stay in Philadelphia." Again, are the Packers going to get A.J. Brown? I don't think so. Does flooding him into the market help us? You're freaking darn right it does. And not even necessarily position by position. If we're hell-bent on going and getting a guard, and, I don't know, the Vikings need to go get a guard, but the Vikings pull the trigger on A.J. Brown. I'm just making up stupid things here. And they throw a bunch of money and a bunch of draft picks at A.J. Brown. You think they have, how much do they have left to go after that guard? Not as much. Our odds just went up to get the guard. I think this is a Pauline thing, but he kind of chimed in on it too. There's been speculation for a while that the Patriots will be in the market for receiver A.J. Brown if the Philadelphia Eagles are open to trading him. Multiple sources in Mobile have confirmed this speculation. Patriots head coach Mike Vrabel, along with general manager John Robinson, drafted Brown during the second round of the 2019 draft when both were with the Tennessee Titans. So you got that familiarity there. Vrabel apparently wanted to sign the receiver to a long-term deal. The franchise and general manager Robinson refused, which led to a fractured relationship. Brown was traded to Philadelphia. So Vrabel wanted the guy. Obviously, Vrabel was right, and he has an opportunity to get the guy and say, hey, I always wanted you. I was on your side, and I want you back. GM was fired that season. How freaking miserable is that? If you're a guy like Vrabel and you got a GM who's an incompetent idiot, trades away your team. I think I saw Clayton posted something a while ago, something to the effect of they should have had, Derrick Henry at running back, A.J. Brown at receiver, and Malik Willis at quarterback. There's also this report here from Philly Eagles or Fly Eagles, or I'm not sure exactly what that's supposed to be, but a Philadelphia Eagles news organization. Here's what they had to say.
Being here, talking to people around league circles, it is obvious that there's an expectation that the Eagles will want to move on from him, or that AJ will want to be elsewhere. Being here the last 24 hours, that is something that stands out to me, is how much of the conversation is around AJ Brown trade speculation. That's not to say that it's a foregone conclusion, but I think we've been around 60-40 on this show. I think that that's probably about fair from being here and having conversations about it.
So again, this is in Philadelphia Eagles circles. This is becoming a it's louder than what we're hearing about Romeo or Rashawn or anything quite like that. In fact, we haven't really heard anything about them outside of fan speculation. The other thing I love about this, first of all, not a fan of the Philadelphia Eagles. Screw them. Number two, they are NFC rivals. I know we don't usually think in terms of NFL or NFC rivals. It's always NFC North. But the Eagles have been a very good NFC team. They've been very weird, very up and down, but they're always a very dangerous unit. And I know some fans don't think about things in these terms. They tend to think of, just be the best. Don't worry about the other teams. I don't. You have to beat what's in front of you. And there have been years where the landscape in front of you is relatively easy. There's just not these elite teams. There have been other years where it's like, this is the worst year ever to be a good team because holy crap, the talent is ridiculous. The Eagles are a team that has been pretty scary in little dribs and drabs here and there. And watching them fall apart is fantastic. Plus, it's everything their fan base deserves. You got the offensive line coach. I don't know why this is in. I'm pretty sure we talked about this, so I don't think I need to say it again. But their offensive line coach has said his time has come to an end. I will briefly mention that again in case I didn't yesterday, but I'm pretty sure I did. You know what? I think I said it on Packernet After Dark, so I didn't really say it. Eagles offensive line coach Jeff Stoutland announced his time in coaching in Philadelphia, quote-unquote, has come to an end. Stoutland is known best for being an offensive line guru and has been the Eagles since 2013. His offensive line units are consistently among the best in the league, developing linemen like Jason Kelsey, Jordan Mailata, Lane Johnson, and more. They're famously known for their tush push, in which Stoutland's role as run game coordinator and offensive line coach played a large part. So that's another big loss for them. Also, immediately after that, the question is, because notice, he didn't say he's retiring. What he said is he's leaving the team. And so the assumption is he's going to be looking for opportunities elsewhere. Now, I don't know how much the Packers are invested in this Butkus fella. They seem to like him enough to at least not fire him. And I don't know that this offensive line coach is truly a guru as opposed to just the Eagles have had good offensive linemen, maybe good drafting, I don't know. But he's got a heck of a reputation. And he seems to just be sitting out there waiting for someone to hire him. Might I suggest the Packers make a very strong push? It's going to be tough to get him, I would assuming he's weighing his options or whatever. But boy, oh boy, would that be nice. In fact, we could throw in one of those fancy little titles on top of it, like, offensive line coach / run game coordinator, kind of like what he was with the Eagles. I don't care what the title is. President of the universe. I don't care. I would like you to at least consider it. If you would be so kind, thank you so much. Oh, Myles Garrett won Defensive Player of the Year. Wow. How did that take an hour to get from the one award to the next award? Speed this thing up, huh? Micah Parsons was third in Defensive Player of the Year. Will Anderson was second. I suppose that's extremely fair considering he missed a lot of time. Hopefully that's different next year. Teteroa McMillan, Offensive Rookie of the Year. All right, getting to a little bit of more NFC North news. Steelers are finalizing a deal to hire Vikings pass game coordinator Brian Angelicchio as the offensive coordinator. So the brain drain in the NFC North continues. The Vikings have now lost another pretty high up guy. Don't need to get too much deeper than that. I'm happy about it. Mike McCarthy helping the Packers out with this stuff. Bears GM Ryan Poles says tackle Ozzie Trapio will be out deep into next year. Trapio suffered a torn patellar tendon against the Packers in the wild card round. Theo Benedett will likely be the fill-in to start the season unless the Bears want to restructure some contracts against the cap to add a depth piece. They'd prefer to Benedett. So that's going to be a pretty big blow for the Chicago Bears. CBS Sports' Jonathan Jones reports Bengals wide receiver coach Troy Walters declined to interview for the Bears offensive coordinator vacancy. I know it's because it's like he wants a play caller job, but it's still hilarious to me. Then there's this gem. I'm not going to play it. I was going to play it, but it's longer than it needs to be, and every other word is a swear, and I don't feel like bleeping all that stuff out. But Jamar Chase, needless to say, went on the Pat McAfee show. And on there, they're all joking because he's talking about Caleb Daniels, and he's talking about, and they're like, who the heck is Caleb Daniels? And he says, I don't know the guy's freaking name. Who's that quarterback for the Chicago Bears? They all bust out laughing. Jamar Chase doesn't know Caleb Williams' name. He doesn't even know his name. Oh, I love it. Well, they caught the guy, huh? And then finally, a little bit of Detroit Lions news here. Aaron Glenn, the former defensive coordinator, is now the head coach, as you know, of the Jets. Presumably you know that. Apparently, he might be looking to poach some Detroit Lions. Says, when Aaron Glenn was announced as head coach of the Jets last year, there were some rumors of an exodus by Detroit Lions players who wanted to join their old defensive coordinator. Rumors were that the Jets would sign linebacker Derek Barnes in free agency, but the Lions gave him a contract right before he was about to hit the market. A rumored trade of another linebacker, Alex Anzalone, never occurred. Talk of Lions players following Aaron Glenn to New York isn't new, but word in Frisco says the odds are high that Anzalone, the 9-year veteran who will become a free agent in March, will be playing for the Jets in 2026. More good news. Okay, let's take our final break, and then we'll get to actual Packers news. We'll take a break. We'll be right back. Bears Joe Thuney gets Protector of the Year. Comeback Player of the Year is Christian McCaffrey, for those that care. Cardinals have hired former Jets offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett as their offensive coordinator. So Hackett is now over with the Arizona Cardinals. Not that we were wanting him here necessarily, but the big Packers news of the day is that they actually did the thing that I was kind of hoping that they would do. And this is reported via Jordan Schultz. The Packers are parting ways with wide receivers coach Ryan Mahaffey and plan to hire Penn State wide receiver coach Noah Pauley as his replacement, per sources. Pauley spent the past 3 years as Matt Campbell's wide receiver coach at Iowa State, working with Jayden Higgins, Jalen Knoll, and others, then followed Campbell to Penn State to take the same role. He has been on the radar of NFL teams for over a year and now joins Matt LaFleur's staff. So, I know it sounds bad to say like I just wanted them to fire somebody. I don't mean that to be arbitrary, like literally just find anybody even if they're not deserving. I just was hopeful that there would be some kind of a signal that they were willing to do the things that needed to be done. Now, whether they're going to get these things right or not, I don't know. But you need to be willing to fire people that are not up to standard. And even maybe not more importantly, but that the next level up from that is you need to be willing to add talent if you have an opportunity to add somebody that's better. Even if the guy is not even doing that bad of a job, if you just have an opportunity to go out and get an absolute stud, you just need to do it. Now, I don't know which of those two things this was, potentially a little of both, but as weird as it sounds, this gives me more confidence in the Packers retaining guys that we think maybe aren't up to par. because it at least signals if they felt, and again, they might be wrong, and by they I mostly mean Matt LaFleur, but if they were wrong about their assessment of their assistant coaches, or if they felt that something needed to be done, they would be doing it. At least this tells me that. It's also not if I were to just make something up here in terms of a possibility, but still something to consider, there's a lot of frustration among the fans about Matthew Golden not getting more opportunities. It's entirely possible that the coaching staff, Matt LaFleur and Brian Gutekunst and whatnot, were also very frustrated. Again, one of the things I think we didn't consider is that maybe Matthew Golden wasn't getting more opportunities because he wasn't ready. He wasn't up to speed on what they needed from the offense. And maybe that pissed off the team a little bit, including Matt LaFleur and Gutekunst and everybody else and Stenovich. And they felt like, you know what, we need a guy in here that can get our guys up to speed better than what they are. Because there's no issue with Christian Watson. There's no issue with Jayden Reed. There's no issue with Dobbs. What is the problem? I mean, again, maybe it's just a stud wide receiver coach. They felt like they needed to do it. Maybe the players are doing a good job, but still the coach wasn't, whatever. But if you were to look at it and say, like, what went wrong with the wide receivers? The biggest thing that went wrong was Matthew Golden. And so if we're going to throw out a couple conspiracy theories, how about that one? Another interesting connection here, an article written by Wendell Ferreira over at A to Z Sports talking about Noah Pauley. He started his coaching career in 2011 as student assistant at Minnesota Duluth, later being promoted to graduate assistant, then offensive coordinator and wide receivers coach. He also spent 4 seasons at North Dakota State, where he coached, wait for it, Christian Watson. That's not all. New Packers wide receiver coach Noah Pauley was at NDSU football from 2019 to 2022, so he worked on the same staff for 2 years with Connor Singer, a candidate to be the Packers quarterbacks coach. But wait, that's not all. Bill Huber says Noah Pauley, who grew up a Packer fan, is back in Green Bay as receivers coach. So first of all, a lot of Packer fans being brought in here. I'm guessing that's not entirely on purpose, but I think it's pretty cool. But also they're getting this really hot commodity at wide receivers coach that is a Packer fan, a guy that can help us recruit the quarterback coach we want, and is Christian Watson's former coach. How freaking perfect is this situation? From that article over at Sports Illustrated, again written by Bill Huber, Packers are hiring Penn State Noah Pauley as wide receivers coach, rising star who interviewed for the 49ers offensive coordinator job last year. He developed future top 3 round draft picks like Jayden Higgins, Jalen, Knoll, and current Packers Christian Watson, which, by the way, I mean, that does get added to his resume. We just heard about Jayden Higgins and Jalen Knoll, solid receivers, and now we can add Christian Watson to that mix. So there's every reason to be excited. I mean, you know, again, maybe he just got lucky and he fell into these guys. That's pretty impressive. And the fact that he's getting offensive coordinator looks by teams, NFL teams, as a quarterbacks or as a college coach is impressive. So he's giving off the vibes of he'll be here for a year and he'll get hired away as an offensive coordinator sometime, which, by the way, we're talking a long time from now. It's not impossible 2027. You know, maybe we're like, hey, how about he's our offensive coordinator? Talks about how Pauley was the receivers coach at NDSU from 2019 to 2022. He was a Minnesota native who grew up a Packers fan, helped develop Watson into a second-round pick in the 2022 draft. Quote from Christian Watson, Coach Pauley, now that I've been with him for a few years, the amount of effort and dedication he puts into the program and the receiver group, I think it really shows in terms of my success and other receivers' success. I can't thank Coach Pauley enough for what he's done to help me develop as a man, a player, and a leader on this football team. This is obviously an aged quote. In 2023, Pauley was named receivers coach at Iowa State. He added pass game coordinator to his title of the 2024-2025 seasons. Pauley played a key role in Jayden Higgins being the second-round pick and Jalen Knoll being a third-round pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. From the day he stepped in and watched film with me and talked over my game, there were so many tips he gave me, Knoll told Penn Live. It started off with the simple things like footwork at the line of scrimmage, being able to have a multitude of releases, things like that. His football IQ, having played the position and how smart he is, elevated how I watch film and studied. Knoll praised Pauley for more than his football acumen. He's a connector of people, Knoll said. He knows how to communicate with guys. He's a competitor as a coach and always wants to see a competitive edge from his players. And my favorite part about his coaching style is the freedom he gives a receiver to grow. He gives you the base fundamentals, and from there, he wants to see you grow into your own player. So we'll see how it goes, but I'm very excited about that. I love these kinds of hires. It seems like we don't do this enough. On the defensive staff, we've been doing it, and it's worked out quite well for several people, guys like Campanile and whatnot. Mahaffey, who we had here before, he was a internal hire who was like assistant offensive lines coach. It's kind of like a throwaway thing where this assistant guy has done a good job, so we'll let him play with the wide receivers for a little bit. And then after a year, it's like, okay, enough of that. We get rid of that guy, and we go out and find an actual stud receivers coach and bring him in to be a stud receivers coach. Just freaking do it. Whatever. Mahaffey, by the way, our wide receivers coach, who was our assistant offensive line coach, I believe, he's going to be joining Mannion with the Eagles as the run game coordinator. So he's going back to it's a promotion, so that's good for him and everything. But he's back to the offensive line run game situation. And Mike Vrabel wins Coach of the Year. Okay, I tell you what, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go record Packernet After Dark real quick because it's not quite 9 o'clock. You all have a good rest of your day. I will talk to you tonight, tomorrow, whatever. Have a good one. Bye-bye.